let's take a look how we can use function composition to represent a real life situation. So in this case, we're given two functions. One of them represents the cost of buying a certain number of gallons of gas. That's the C function, since it starts with C. So G is representing how many gallons of gas I purchase. My second function, we'll call the G function because it starts with G, tells me if I drive a certain distance, how many gallons of gas I will use. So what they ask me to find is this composition down here, C of G of 500. What's really more important to me, though, is explaining what all our numbers along the way represent. So if you need help with composition, we have a couple previous videos you could watch. Otherwise, it's really no different than what we've done in the past. So let's go ahead and use G as our innermost function and start on the outside with the C function. So what I want to do is rewrite that C function exactly as it is. However, in place of the variable, I'm going to leave a big old blank parentheses. So 3.09, which must be the cost per gallon of gasoline. And then in that blank space, I'm going to sub in the G function. So this one right here is getting plugged into my variable right there to do the composition. So let me switch colors real quick. So let me replace that down here. Oops, I'm going to fit this in here, but I'll try. 0.026 D, the distance I drive, raised to the 1.32. Oh, look, it did fit. Wonderful. Power. Okay. What they've asked me to do, though, is not just do composition, but evaluate with this. And so I'm going to make the variable D 500 in this case. So rather than rewrite this whole thing, I'm just going to be lazy. And over the D variable, I'm just going to write, there we go, 500 raised to the 1.32. Okay? And so as far as my explanation goes, I'm going to start on the side with what that 500 is. Well, I can see that 500 replaced D, which is distance. So the road trip I'm taking must be 500 miles. To start my explanation, I'm driving 500 miles, which I think is a song that I won't sing right now. Let's go ahead and evaluate this and see what ends up happening. So let's start in here inside the parentheses like we did in the previous video. Remember that exponents happen before multiplication. Just be careful you don't multiply and then raise that answer to the 1.32. I would raise 500 to the 1.32 power and then multiply. Doing that gets me an answer of 94.98 approximately. Okay, that's still within parentheses, though, and is still being multiplied by 3.09. Well, if I pause and ask what that 94.98 represents, I'm going to include that in my explanation. We plugged in 500 miles, and we got out G as an answer, which was the amount of gasoline we used. So I'm going to say in my explanation, I've driven 500 miles, and I've used 94.98 gallons of gas. Okay, so my explanation will continue, but at least I'm up to that point. Last up, let's do this final step of multiplying by 3.09, and that gets me a final answer of approximately 293.48. And then if I once again go ahead and think about what that represents, I've plugged in 500 for D, I've got 500 miles, I figured out how many gallons of gas I've used, so finally that C must represent a cost. So as a final answer, that's what I get for the composition. However, for my explanation, I want to include that in there. I've driven 500 miles, I've used 94.98 gallons, and it cost me almost $300, $293.48. So function composition is not the only way to answer this question, but there's one use we could have for function composition.